All right, let's break down another setup today. I'm going to show you my favorite, most perfect Texas rig setup. You guys have been asking for it. I've been paying attention in the comment section, seeing what you guys wanted to see the most of concerning setups. And one I saw the most was the Texas rig setup, just a good old-fashioned Texas rig. Now I got to be honest with you, a Texas rig is a very, very broad topic, because Texas rigs, I will say I probably won more money on that bait, and more money has been won on bass fishing on a Texas rig than probably just about any other setup ever, because it's so versatile. There's so many different ways to rig it. There's so many things that you can do with it, basically from punching deep grass to punching shallow grass to flipping wood to casting to skipping it around on things. Like the Texas rig is the basic fundamental rig of all setups, are pretty much based around the basic Texas rig. So let's look at it. I always start with the rod. I've got two setups. I got one that I use that is basically professional grade equipment that you want to use for the everyday serious tournament angler, and I got something that everybody and their brother can buy. So just here recently, Favorite came out with a rod series called the Hex. This is it right here. This is a bad dude. This thing is so light, it feels so good. This is a bad rod. This one particular right here, what I like to use for a basic Texas rig, and keep in mind, we're just talking about a general synopsis of when we're using a Texas rig, what we generally do. This could be punching, this could be laying grass, we could be talking about fishing laydowns. There's a lot of stuff we could envelop in this conversation of the Texas rig. But just generally speaking, a good place to start for you guys, this is going to be a 7/6 heavy action rod. I'll tell you why I use the heavy action and all that a little bit later. Typically when I grab a Texas rig, it's probably going to be a little bit more of a power fishing technique. I need some backbone. It's a little bit more man-to-man comeback fishing style, a little bit more power style fishing. 7/6 heavy action is what I got here. Now, I always talk about with setups, slower reels. We got too many fast reels. We got too many fast reels. You need slower reels to make that bait do what it's designed to do. This is one of the techniques where these high-speed reels is going to pay off for you. The 801s, 9s, 10s, 11, 12s, 15s, 23-1 gear ratio, whatever you got, the fastest reel you got in your boat, this is probably going to be the time for you to pull it out. Now, this is a Lew's Hyper Mag, all right? This is an 8-3-1 gear ratio reel. Reason I like that fast reel, going down through there, I'm flipping some sparse grass, flipping laydowns. I'm flipping. Number one thing is, when I flip, I'm trying to be very efficient, get my bait in there, bring it out. So when I flip it in there, I let it hit the bottom, I work it with the rod tip, and when I reel it up to make the next pitch, the faster my reel is, the more pitches I can make the rest of the day. So I can flip it in there, whoop, boop, hits the bottom, I work it 2 times, I reel it in real fast, and hit it to the next hole, or the next laydown, the next dock, whatever it is. That is key, because it doesn't wear me out through the day. Having a fast reel works for just a Texas rig. Other thing is, I flip in the laydown. I flip in the sparse hydrilla. Flip it in there, it hits the bottom, boom, he hits it. I hit him, he comes running straight to the boat. If I've got a fast reel, now I can catch up with him and I don't lose my hook set on him. So faster reels, it works when you're talking about a Texas rig. Line, I'm going to be a little bit all over the place. When you're talking about fluorocarbon, probably 17 to 20 pound test fluorocarbon, as high as 25. You see me using some of my Florida videos. And I may even have braid sometime. We're fishing in Florida. You use this rig can go on all different line types. It just depends on what you're trying to do in it, and that's what I meant by this topic is broad, and it's probably gonna be a long video because the Texas rig has a lot of moving parts and a lot of different ways to use it. So the Hex 7/6 heavy, I like something with some backbone, faster reel. This is a Lew's Hyper Mag 8-3-1 gear ratio reel, 20 pound test fluorocarbon, 17 and 20 pound test fluorocarbon. You can use 15 if you want to. Be happy, use whatever pound test you want to use. My perfect setup is going to have 17 to 20 on it. Now, if you're wanting something a little bit more affordable, the Hex is that's professional grade equipment. This is for us to fish every day, all day. We want the best, we want the lightest, we want the best that they make. This is rod's $3.99. You don't have to. We have plenty of options out there. If $3.99 is too rich for your blood, I got one that'll do the same job that's about half that price. This is the favorite 7.3 heavy action. Now this guy's probably got a little bit more backbone than this one does. It's a little bit shorter, but I've used this for a Texas rig too. So check this one out, the favorite Rush 7.3 heavy action. I just think you need something that's a heavy action, a fast tip to be able to turn a fish around. Because like I said, not a finesse technique most of the time when you're talking about a Texas rig. So you can do the same thing. This reel is even a little bit cheaper. This is a 7.5-to-1 Lew's Tournament Pro. So that brings the price of your combo down just a little bit. If you don't want to spend, you know, $700 or $800 in a combo, you can get this guy for about half the price and have a really stout tournament grade setup as well. All right, so this is where, let's get into the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about here with the Texas rig. If you don't, I probably should discuss what a Texas rig is. Okay, so basically what you're going to have is you're going to have a straight shank offset hook or offset hook, something like that. All right, you're going to have that, and basically you're going to have a bullet style sinker. You know, now we use a lot more tungsten than we did when I was growing up. So, and you know, whatever, if you still use lead, that's fine. Tungsten is smaller, it's heavier, it's a more dense metal. So yeah, most of us are using tungsten now because it's, quite frankly, that's what's legal where most of us fish. It's tungsten. You can't even use lead. That's all it is, bullet style sinker and a hook. Well, you say, well, if that's all it is, why is it so complicated? Let me tell you why. There's several different ways to rig these two components. Certain hooks work better with certain style plastics. Depending on what size sinker you have, that determines what knot you tie and what hook you tie and what rod you use and what line you use. There's a lot of moving parts to make this work perfectly. A general place to be, you're talking about a Texas rig, just your general Texas rig, somewhere between, I would say, a 1/4 ounce or 3/16 ounce, as light as an 1/8 ounce. Let's just say as light as an 1/8 ounce and as heavy as a 1/2 ounce before you have to start amending your lines, rods, and reels. I think that's a safe place to say. As light as an 1/8 ounce, as heavy as a 1/2 ounce on sinker for your general Texas rig. Now, we talked about that. Let's talk about hooks. All right, so for my setup, what I like to use, this sinker right here is a 3/8 ounce, and I use Z-Man plastic. You kind of have to amend your weight sizes with Z-Man a little bit because the plastic is buoyant and it floats, and the bait that I'm about to rig up, it has a lot of plastic on it. And I've noticed you have to use a little bit heavier sinker to as opposed to when you use traditional plastic. 3/8 ounce sinker, slip sinker. Slip him in just like this. It seems very mundane and simple, but I'm going to take that sinker and the pointed end goes towards the rod tip. Okay, I know that seems very simple to some of you guys, but you never know. Some people are maybe just getting into fishing that are watching this video. Now, this is where you have there's two style hooks that I like to use. All right, this is my straight shank, and I also use an offset worm hook. The only two styles that I use. See the offset, see how it's got this 90-degree angle, two 90-degree angles in it. This is a 5/0 offset. This is a 4/0 straight shank. Straight shank, no 90 degrees in it. Has a little keeper right there. That's all that is, a bait keeper. So for me, what I've noticed, you like that? For me, I got on that high pitch. For me, that means I'm serious. For me, what I have found, all right, when I am fishing grass, any kind of aquatic vegetation, lily pads, hydrilla, milfoil, I tend to like, and this is Brian's personal preference, okay, I tend to like the straight shank better. I'm going to show you why. Now with the straight shank, when you go to rig your plastic, it seems to come through the weeds a little bit better, and I'm going to show you why. My knot for connecting my Texas rig on fluorocarbon is pretty much a Palomar knot. Let's just say that. There's some other knots I use, but if you're watching this video on a Texas rig, you need something simple and easy. Let's go with just a standard Palomar knot. If you don't know what that is, just look that up on YouTube. You're already on YouTube. It's the Encyclopedia of Fishing Knowledge. Just look it up. It's not a knot time video on this one. So a couple things you can do once you got to this point. Now you can rig it, and a lot of times I do. That's it. That's all I'm going to have on my Texas rig. My slip sinker goes up and down my line, and if I can get away without pegging my sinker, what we mean by pegging my sinker, it's a couple different ways. You can use a bobber stop to keep this weight from moving up and down the line, or you also can use a peg it. Way with it and be efficient. The best to let that sinker slide around. Reason being, if you get a fish on, what happens is the sinker slides up the line and that weight doesn't slam down and push the hook back out of the fish's mouth. You're going to have a better hookup ratio without pegging your sinker. Sometimes you can't do that if you're fishing grass because the sinker separates from the bait, the soft plastic, and you can't get your bait down in the wood or the grass. All right, so what you're going to do, this is a palmetto bugs. This is just a creature bait. For a Texas rig, you can use a lot of different plastics. Stick baits, worms, straight tail worms, finesse worms, big worms, creature baits, punch skirts. That's what I was telling you. This is a broad topic, and we got to kind of bring it down just to make this video something you can actually chew on. Just a creature bait. This is called a palmetto bugs. You can see it's real thick and juicy. It's got a lot of plastic on it. That's what I was talking about. You have to use a little bit heavier sinker with Z-Man plastics because they do float. So to get the same fall rate as you do on traditional plastic, you got to go to a little bit heavier sinker. What I'm going to do here on the Texas rig, I'm just going to go in about 1/8 of an inch into my plastic, and I'm just going to pull it all the way up. If you're using Z-Man plastic, you can pull it all the way up and over the line tie. What you can do next is you're just going to flip your hook over. Make sure your plastic goes up and over the little keeper that's on a straight shank hook. And I'm going to show you why I like the straight shank hook better in grass. So let's see, I flip my palmetto bugs in a little clump of grass I see. You can see how, all right, you see how this is very streamlined. You see how that's going to come through the grass really well because there's nothing to catch any grass or any hydrilla right here. That's very easy to get it to go over the hydrilla or the aquatic vegetation. Other thing I like about it is typically in grass, fish can really bury you up pretty hard, and a straight shank hook has a much bigger bite than my offset hook. What I mean by bigger bite, between basically the shaft of the hook and the point of the hook, there's a bigger gap, a bigger distance. So I have a lot of bite. So if a fish gets this, pretty good chance he's going to get it. He's going to prick himself. Pretty good chance. Now on the offset, I don't have quite as much bite above the line tie or the shank of the hook because of the 90-degree angle that we have in the hook shaft. So it's not quite as much of a bite. However, I tend to like this, and keep in mind, this is my opinion and my preference here. I tend to like the offset style hook better when I'm fishing around wood. This is why. So if I'm flipping laydowns or if I'm flipping around docks, you can get away with the straight shank around docks, but in particular with wood, the hook point tends to want to come out of the plastic much faster with a straight shank hook. But with the offset, it tends to hold the plastic a lot better. I'm going to show you. I'm going to rig up another bait here. Let's just grab a stick bait. Let's just grab a stick bait here. And you'll see that on a stick bait, when I rig the plastic up, I'm going to do it the same way that I did the palmetto bugs. I'm going to put it in about 1/8 inch, and I'm going to go through. It's always best to flip your hook over before it gets to the line tie. Okay, and then I'm just going to, with Z-Man plastic, since it's so soft, most of the time I just bury my hook right into the plastic. I don't Texpose it or anything like that. I bury it right into the plastic, just like that. Now, the reason I like it better on an offset hook, the hook seems to hold the plastic a lot better. It doesn't prick through the plastic nearly as quickly, which when I'm flipping wood, that keeps me from hanging up as much, which is really important. I know you're thinking, well, if the hookup ratio is not as good, why would you even use it? Well, if I'm not efficient and I'm making too much noise and every 3 flips into a laydown I'm getting hung up, my chances of getting bit are not as good. So you kind of got to pick the best of two evils. For me, I like this offset hook much better for fishing around hard structure. I feel like it's a little bit more efficient, and I still have enough bite to get a hookup because the hook point is still above the line tie, so there's enough bite there to prick a fish. And this setup's always worked for me. Adjust your sinker size or wherever you're fishing. If you're fishing a little bit deeper wood or a little bit deeper docks or whatever, of course you're going to use a heavier sinker. Some days they want a heavier sinker because they want that quicker fall rate. They're biting on reaction more, or vice versa. Maybe they want it light because they're a little bit more lethargic. You got to figure that out for the day. There's not one size sinker that's going to cover you for every situation. For the most part, the setups that we're talking about and the gear that we have here, between an 1/8 and a 1/2 ounce seems to be a good medium without you having to change your knots, change your line, and change the actions of your rod. So this setup right here, when I'm fishing around wood, I would suggest you guys try the offset. You're fishing around grass, or if you're fishing, you know, even around docks, you can get away with it. Fixed position docks, I feel like the straight shank hook does you a little bit better job. It's a little bit more streamlined. It seems to come through the grass better, and because fish tend to bind you up more in grass, you got a little bit more bite, so you don't have to set the hook quite as hard. So that's the basic setup for a Texas rig, from my hook to the lines to the sinkers to the baits. So I hope that helps you out a little bit about my favorite setups when you're talking about a Texas rig. This is two of my favorite baits. The bang sticks is 6 3/4 inches, and the palmetto bugs, of course, that's gonna be my little juicy gummy bear right there. I love that guy a lot. Two rods I got here: 7.3 heavy action rush Lose Tournament Pro. That's a 7.5 gear ratio reel, 17 to 20 pound test fluorocarbon. Then I got the favorite hex, 7.6 heavy. This is the meat hammer right here. I got the Lose Hyper Mag on here. This is the 8.3 to gear ratio reel, 20 pound test fluorocarbon. These are rigs that just work for me day in, day out. Let me know what other setups you want to see. That's my favorite Texas rig setup.